Welcome back to AM Northwest. Our next guests are co-founders of the Athletes Mental Health Foundation, and their new podcast launches today. Here to tell us more about sports shrinks, we welcome co-hosts Katie Steele and Dr. Tiffany Brown. Good to have you with us. Let me start with you, Doctor. Tell me about sports shrinks.
Oh, we're so excited about this. We started to write a book a couple years ago, which comes out in June, called The Price She Pays. And after that kind of got off the ground, we knew that we wanted to have more conversations.
Right.
And so we started this podcast so that we can have the conversations about athletes and mental health and what it means for athletes to be dealing with issues of mental health across their careers, whether they're young kids all the way up to elite athletes.
So Katie, tell me about some of the topics you're going to touch on.
Yeah, we cover all sorts of topics, starting from young kids getting into sport and what it's like
smart.
to parent young and developing athletes, through a career to potentially becoming an elite athlete. We talk about eating disorders and substance use, anxiety, depression, and how that looks a variety of different ways throughout one's life and involvement in sport.
And tell me about the Athletes Mental Health Foundation. What is it exactly?
Yeah, so part of in between this, we knew that there was such a hunger and a need for resources.
Yeah.
We talked to a lot of parents and caregivers and coaches and athletes themselves who were saying, okay, great, we know we need to be in conversation about mental health, but what does that actually mean?
Right.
And so our foundation is really designed to provide those resources. We've got both static resources on our site, and we're producing trainings every month, so both coaches, parents, athletes can access kind of our perspectives in real time, and they're free and available to the public.
What are you seeing when it comes to kids and sports? I don't know, from the outside looking in, it seems like parents are really pushing their kids to be in every club sport possible. And if they're not going to be a professional athlete, I wonder, where is that going to go? Because the kids are really working hard.
They're totally working hard, and the hope is that they're having fun while they're doing it.
Yeah, but
right?
sometimes it seems like it's work for them.
Yeah, and it is work, and being an athlete is work, and that's part of what we love about this topic is the contradiction oftentimes of what is required to be an athlete can be in contradiction with what's needed for optimized mental health, but we know you can blend the two, starting at really young ages of helping kids learn to drive and find that intrinsic drive and passion and room for maneuverability. We talk a lot about learning how to shift gears so that they can have that edge, but also know how to recover and how to have downtime and have other hobbies so they're not just completely
focused in on the one thing. Because
Yes.
if one thing doesn't succeed, or they get an injury, then that's it, right? What are you seeing most when it comes to what you're seeing out there as far as young athletes? What are you seeing?
Well, we know for sure that around 10% of athletes are accessing support and help for the common kind of mental health issues that they have. So we know there's a huge gap of athletes who are struggling, who don't know who to turn to, how do I turn to people? And part of that is this fear that if they ask for help, then that's going to mean something about their capacity as an athlete. And so part of what Katie and I care so much about is helping professionals and coaching staffs know that if there is an athlete who's saying that they're having some anxiety or they're having some depression or some grief, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're struggling as an athlete. It might mean that the athletic career is going really, really well and they need support for what's happening for them internally.
Well, but what you're hoping then is to take care of the whole person, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's the thing we care about to such a huge degree, is that oftentimes for athletes the focus is just on the athlete and their competitiveness, and we know that there's so much more to them, and how we can fill that gap to get people to be able to see that there's much more to the athlete.
And how the system needs support, because everybody is trying to recreate this wheel, and mental health is oftentimes this reactionary response. There's symptomology, and so then there's a response. And it's the same with athletic systems. Right now there's protocol for if somebody breaks their ankle, we know how to respond as an athletic system. However, if there's a mental health need, there isn't clear protocol. So when we wrote The Price She Pays and through Athletes Mental Health Foundation, we're really big on helping systems create that wheel versus everybody having to scramble and create it on their own.
What are you seeing when we talk about The Price She Pays? What are you seeing as far as what female athletes are going through? Because they have additional issues as well to deal with, mental health issues.
Yeah, we know that the experiences of women are much different. They are competing in a system that was designed by men and made for men. And so women are navigating typical struggles that women deal with in terms of maybe it's discrimination, maybe it's decisions about parenting or pregnancy, navigating what it means to be working with potentially a pretty abusive coach who's male and putting a lot of pressure on the experience of the athlete. And so there's a lot of mistreatment that happens for women, and we know the pressure is huge. And so our book really aims to talk that through. And again, from what happens when you're really, really young and you're trying to get on a playground as an 8-year-old and you don't get to use the field for soccer at recess because the boys are already
have it. I was mentioning to you about Caitlin Clark and how well she's doing, but if you go on social media, there are a lot of anti-female athletes on social media, and they're dealing with that as well.
Yeah. And we have to bring awareness, right? We need to be having these conversations about women in sport and celebrating them in the same capacity. We interviewed a gal through the book writing process, and she was a high schooler, and she said, if you're a female athlete, you also have to be a marketer. Right, so all of the complexities of what female athletes...
You got to sell people on the idea of women in sports. Interesting. The book, again, is titled The Price She Pays, and the podcast is called Sports Shrinks. Thank you both so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Ellen.
We'll put all the information about the podcast and the book on our website at katu.com. We'll be right back with more AM Northwest. Don't go away.